Hey guys, uh, I'm Muircat. This week has been really wild between the sudden influx of all my new subscribers. Thank you so much, by the way, and all of the love that you guys have been showing me on all of my videos and all the love that you guys have been sending my way. The start of this week was just really exciting and haunting as I realized I haven't released a new song in about 4 months. And I've been freaking out, trying to figure out what I should put out next to try and introduce myself to you guys more formally. As I was looking through what I was getting ready to get released in the next few months, I realized a lot of it wouldn't be ready for maybe a month or two. Depending on a few collaborative factors. But I realized that I haven't really made clear what my goals are, my personal goals as a musician are, let alone explain what this niche genre of music that I've been developing over the past few years even is. So, if you have listened to a lot of my earlier works, especially my first album, Midnight Sun. By the way, the link for that will be in the top right corner. So go ahead and listen to it if you haven't. It's rough around the edges, some of my first work. Be gentle on me, please. You'll probably hear in that album the really folk rockish tonality that I was really inspired by at that point in time in my late teens when I wrote that. Not long after I finished recording that album, but before it released, I had written a song that all of you know as Ashwood, which was a landmark song for me personally as an artist, that while I had lost the love that I sing about in the song, I had discovered a new love within the old world imagery and the folklore and that influenced the lyrics in Ashwood. Writing and telling stories using metaphorical language inspired by medieval fantasy. Things such as castles, wood sprites, enchanted forests. They really inspired me and sparked something in me as a writer, and it was a fantastic feeling to have written that. I still hold Ashwood as one of the best lyrical songs that I've ever written. And over the next few years, I would often find myself coming back to those kinds of motifs, those kinds of themes in my personal poetry and more of my lyrical writing. Finally, when it came to me writing, recording, and releasing Ballad of a Bleeding City as part of a Bionicle fan project I was a part of, I realized that this was a style of music that brought me more happiness to write and perform than any other. So the night I released Ballad of a Bleeding City, I coined a term for it, this new strange genre that I was creating, and I called it Neobardic, or New Bardic, as kind of the rough translation of what that means. So I believed that Neobardic was a term that embraced the spirit of old world lyricism, that this music was being made using modern production and instrumental techniques to create a unique feeling and atmosphere that I hadn't really seen in a whole lot of other music until I started getting into it myself. If you're unfamiliar with the term bardic or bard, let me give you a brief history lesson. Bards in old Celtic traditions were actually historians in a period of time when history and legend wasn't really written down. It was passed down through oral traditions or by word of mouth or by being In other words, being taught verbally, face to face with somebody. The best way that we tend to remember things is through rhyme schemes and through music and songs. That's why you may remember all the words to all of your favorite songs, but you can't remember what, like, things from math class or something like that. That's why you create little games to trick your mind into remembering it. That's why bards were important for preserving history, was because they would create songs for the sake of preserving it, because it would become easier to remember it. And obviously, through oral traditions, a lot of those kinds of things withered away. We have lost a lot of history because of either miscommunication or some songs just simply being lost because they weren't played, or that the teachers couldn't remember them, or a myriad of other reasons. And so much of Celtic history was preserved through bardic tradition, who passed these songs down to their successors, their wards, their apprentices, with the hope that they would preserve them for the next generation. Over time, once better written histories were being kept and preserved, the function, that specific function of bards, became less and less prevalent in society. They didn't rely on creating these epic poems and these epic songs to tell history anymore. And so that kind of started shifting the dynamic of how a bard functions in society, and eventually it started withering away down to purely entertainment, which is kind of what leads us back to today, where music is predominantly used for entertainment and has been, unfortunately, industrialized to hell and back. While there has been, that certain aspect of bardism or bardic culture that has stayed, where the stories that are told through music tend to be more personal histories, or, like emotional stories that are told from a personal perspective, kind of minor historical events subjected specifically to the artist themselves. The art of telling broader stories of historical or legendary content or myth or whatever it may be, that has kind of been lost, with the exceptions of a few artists and, I guess, hymns in religious aspects. But that's the gap, the void, or the niche that I believe this new kind of form of neo-bardic music kind of fills. It's meant to tell historical stories, it's meant to tell legends, it's meant to tell these epic tales and these epic myths through music, through symbolic and metaphorical lyricism. All the while, using all the available tools, stylings, and techniques of our modern day production equipment and software. I will say, while I may have been the first to coin the term, I'm certainly not the only artist that kind of functions in this neo-bardic style. And I have put together a list of some of the modern bards or neo-bards that I personally listen to, and if you have other people that you think kind of falls into the same category as what I'm speaking of, I would love to hear your recommendations. I am always on the hunt for new music to listen to, not only to inspire me, but just because music is the biggest part of my life. I would not be alive today if it weren't for music. It is that important to me in my life. To reinforce how important music has been in my life, I want to tell you all about some of the music that I was exposed to growing up that has kind of led me down this path of starting to want to reinvigorate the old forms of bardic music. My dad was a rock and roller who was in loads and loads of bands growing up, as well as working in record shops, venues, just music was a huge part of his life growing up too. And while his life took a different path that kind of led to me being born, music still permeated his life through and through. My childhood with him was a really cool experience. Listening to countless genres that he had taken interested in as a kid and throughout his teens and adulthood, and assembling this huge collection of vinyl records that I unfortunately, didn't get to listen to as much as I would have liked growing up before he eventually sold them to somebody who's more interested in taking care of them than my dad was. And additionally, he had home studio equipment before it was really more commercially available as it is today. And so I got to hear obscure local bands that would come through and they'd record with my dad just because he liked their music, and he just wanted to preserve it for himself as well as help them out by just recording them for free. And so I got to listen to a lot of weird stuff growing up. I still have fantastic memories of sitting down and listening to bands that my dad brought into the house to record, and they're things that I'll cherish forever. Additionally, my dad played songs on our piano and sang us lullabies on the guitar to go to sleep, and there was music throughout the day, all day, every day in my house. I was very, very lucky to just be surrounded by just this culture of the love of music. And as my love of music grew and my skill as a pianist grew, I started asking my dad to teach me how to play some of the music that I grew up listening to him play for us. Like a bard to his ward, he sat me down and taught me many of the songs that I had asked him to teach me. And to me, there's one of those songs in particular that stood out against the rest. Many of the others were more or less very direct, covers of the songs that he was playing, but there was one in particular that was completely different, that I had not actually realized as I asked him to teach it to me. I had not realized that I hadn't heard a true and proper recording of the original song. And that song is called Shadow Dream Song by the wonderful artist Jackson Browne. The reason why I had never heard it was because Jackson Browne had only ever recorded it a handful of times and only at live performances. He never recorded a studio performance of it and actually gave cover rights to somebody else to do that in the studio. And so the only recordings that I knew existed for a while were these live recordings after he had taught me this version. And the way that he had actually learned to play it was he had gotten some lead sheets for Jackson Browne songs, and Shadow Dream Song was on that lead sheet. And he had never heard it before, but he assembled what he believed was a proper rendition, a proper arrangement of this song that he had never heard of before for the piano, while the original was written for guitar. And so there's a world of difference between the way he interpreted it versus how it actually was. So this personalized arrangement of Shadow Dream Song was the only version of it that I had heard for years and years and years. It was the version of the song that I grew up listening to. And, like I said, my dad taught me the version that he arranged, and that is the version that I play today, with some minor adjustments for my own personal play style and taste. But it 100% holds the spirit of what my dad arranged for that version of the song. And I hold it very near and dear to my heart. So in the spirit of passing songs down from generation to generation, like bards of old, in the spirit of me trying to live up to being the bard that I want to be, I am now passing that arrangement of Shadow Dream Song down to you guys. and the link for that will be in the description and at the end of the video. I cannot thank you guys, my new subscribers, enough for just the tremendous, enormous amount of support that you guys have shown me over the past just few days since you've been here. It's been overwhelming. I've been an emotional wreck trying to get something ready for you guys to thank you guys for being here and supporting me. And I cannot wait to show you guys more of the music, Neobardic or otherwise, that I've been putting together to fill this year with music and fill this year with love and joy and beautiful expressions. Now, since we're on YouTube, I now have to, unironically say, smash that like button, subscribe if you're not, turn on that notification bell, and I just hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you.